Jenny, to get started, can you
Yeah,
maybe please just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
sure. Should I start my screen or should I do it with me here?
Well, let's do a little bit with you, and then we'll
Okay.
go to the screen.
Hi, my name's Jenny Sampson. I live here in Berkeley, and I've been a member of EBPCO for a few years. Um, I grew up in San Francisco, and let's see. Yeah, I don't know, I've been doing photography for a long time. I learned in grammar school, um, and didn't major in anything artsy photography. I majored in psychobiology eons ago, but I've always loved making photographs and stuff like that. And I got into making tintypes in 2008. I learned at Reiko Photo Center, and have kind of been just focusing on that since. So,
Jenny, can I ask you what was your very first thought of, oh, I want to learn tintype? What went through your head?
oh, I know exactly that moment. I was at Reiko. I was chatting with Anne Jastrub at her desk, and she said, "Check out this tintype of Bill Daniel, because remember when Bill worked there?" And I loved Bill. He just was super cool. Anyway, it was the coolest tintype. It was so beautiful. I didn't even know what a tintype was at the time. I mean, I had seen tintypes and daguerreotypes at museums, but I didn't really know what. I just wasn't. I didn't know about them. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know the history and all that stuff. Um, but I saw it, and Michael Schindler had made it, and it just it was gorgeous. And at that time, I had always been strictly a black and white photographer, black and white film photographer. I wasn't interested in color. I wasn't interested in anything else, just that. And, but digital like was really starting to come in strong. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take a platinum palladium class with Carrot Kuklis. So I did that. I was like, yeah, I could do this, and this looks awesome. It seems like I could really, you know, like add this into my repertoire and stuff. And then I took a copper plate class with Unai, and I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is amazing. This is so great. And then I saw that tintype that Anne showed me, and I was like, what the fuck is that? Okay, and I signed up for a class at Reiko immediately, and that was it. that was it. That was the moment, and yeah, and then it was like seeing that plate clear in the fixer in the dark room. We were all in, one of those big group dark rooms, and I was the one jumping up and down, literally, in the
Mhm.
room. Like I was losing it. I couldn't. It was just beautiful. And I we took lunch break. I called my friend. I'm like, okay, you have to come here. He lives in New Orleans. I'm like, you have to come here. We have to make tintypes.
Wow.
It was
So
just like
you had
the
this
thing.
very strong emotional reaction from the very beginning,
Mhm.
and did you think like, okay, that's part of what drives you to the medium, that you can create strong emotional reactions in other people through the process?
Um, no, I mean, it really was a very personal reaction to it. I kind of didn't care about what anybody else thought. It just was a very visceral reaction, and
You just wanted to keep doing it.
I wanted to keep doing it. And I also had an interest and curiosity in using large format cameras, but I had always been just a carry around, medium format girl, nothing else with me, just the camera, shooting on the fly. But I was curious about being able to use a view camera. I didn't think I could do it. I felt like it would take too much time, and it wasn't the kind of photography that I did. Um, but the
So this was
tin
a big change.
it was a big change, but I also like, I'm also a chef. I was a psychobiology major in college. I worked in the lab. I work in the kitchen. That making everything from scratch
Hmm.
was something that has always appealed to me. And so it just, I feel like even the mixing of the chemistry and the handling of the chemistry and all that came very naturally to me. I remember reading people's comments. This is way back. There was hardly anything online about wet plate at that time. Um, People were afraid of potassium cyanide. They were afraid of doing this or that. And it was all very scary. And for me, it just was like, this is awesome. Like, this is easy, no problem. You know, now I get to buy beakers and flasks and scales and stirring rods. Now I get to buy all this stuff and actually use it for something real rather than just to fuck around and do nothing.
Right. You know what? I never heard you make the connection between the process and your background as a chef. It's such a natural connection,
Mhm.
and that's really interesting how you instantly felt comfortable with the handmade nature, where you're making everything from scratch, even the developer, even the
Mhm.
plate, and you could already accept that because you're already comfortable with your role as making things from scratch.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that too is I have that book by Steve Angel, the Dark Room Cookbook or whatever.
Hmm.
I had bought it years ago. Steve actually reviewed my work at Photo Americas eons ago. And I started looking him up and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I bought it. And I was like, who makes their own chemistry? There was a total disconnect. Like, why would you do that? You can just buy it in bottles from the photography store and add water. So what do you mean? You know,
Yeah,
and like now I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
yeah. Says the woman with silver stains on her shirt. Um,
Yeah, I did.
Jenny, and I know that you cover this in your presentation, but if you don't mind that we could talk a little bit about it now, just I'm really enjoying talking to you without the distraction of the photos because they're so distracting. Um, can we? And I really love it when you talk about this, about the next moment, the jump to working with skateboarders and working with people, out in the wilds. And
Yeah,
can you tell us about how the heck that got started and what that experience is like?
sure. And actually, I left that out of the talk because I figured everybody knows that already. No, I'm just kidding. So before I knew how to make tintypes, the way I photographed was very much on the fly. I was shy. I liked photographing people, but I didn't want to engage with them because I I I just really was drawn to how people's gestures and postures naturally are. If they're like, I like those really in between moments. And So at the time, I was living in Seattle and I lived in Lower Queen Anne and I was working near the Kingdom, if any of you are familiar with that. So I would ride my bike down Fifth Avenue. The Memorial Stadium was on my right, and this skate park was on the left, which is now where the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is. It is unrecognizable now to what it was, but there was this giant skate park, and this was in the 90s. Skateboarding at that time was a really intimidating, kind of mean landscape. It was, I mean, it could be intimidating for anyone. I'm sure it wasn't mean when you were in it. But I feel like that's where like a lot of kind of negative stereotypes of skateboarders kind of originates from that decade. And anyway, I'd ride by, but I also I thought they were really cool. I mean, I grew up in San Francisco. San Francisco skateboarders in the 90s, 80s, 90s, that was like a big thing. Tommy Guerrero used to hang out at my high school. He liked girls a little younger. I mean, he was only like 18 or 19, but we were 15. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, I really wanted to photograph skateboarders because they were all together. They were kind of doing this thing. And I thought, oh my God, I could go in there. I loved just how they were standing and how they were interacting and moving around. And I just thought it was like so rich with imagery. But I was totally intimidated. I wasn't a skater. I didn't know skaters. My boyfriend wasn't a skater. It wasn't my world at all. There was no way I was going to walk up there and be like, hi, so, but it like stuck in my head. And for years and years, I just kept practicing, photographing strangers and asking if I could photograph them very slowly, because I really didn't like to do that. In the back of my head, I knew like at some point before I die, I'm going to photograph a skater. So jump ahead. That was 1995. So I moved back to the Bay Area in 2004. I learned how to make tintypes in 2008. In 2009, I took another workshop with Reiko, and we made tintypes out in the field. And I saw how to make tintypes out in the field. And which was really important to me, because as in that first year of learning how to make tintypes, I was always tied to a darkroom. But wherever I'd be wandering around, I saw tintypes everywhere. I wanted to take, I just wanted to make them anywhere. And I was like, how do you do that? So anyway, I learned how to do that. I built a portable darkroom, and I finished it in January of 2010. And right around then, I was driving around Berkeley. I was avoiding traffic. I found the Berkeley skate park on like 10th and Harrison near Gilman. And I didn't really think much of it. I was like, oh, there's a skate park. Okay, go home, finish my portable darkroom. And I was like, now what do I do? And I was like, oh, I'm going to go to that skate park. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how, like.
Did you feel some license, like now that you're a tintype photographer, you're a different person, you have some extra superpowers?
No, definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
What it was I was like, ooh, I want to take pictures of them, and I can distract myself from like being super nervous. And I can just pretend that I'm testing out my equipment, and that's what I'll tell them.
Right.
When in fact, that is what I was doing.
Yeah. It's brilliant.
So there. I think people are going to start hanging up now. Okay, I'm done. Click.
Jenny, let me ask you another question. I'm dying to get to the presentation like everybody else, but I'm also, I love talking to you and hearing about your experience. And I think it's something also that many, if not every single photographer, deals with is, how to approach that person to take their picture. We all know that feeling inside of just raw fear. And it's so interesting to hear how you overcame it. And of course, tintype photography has this extra special challenge to it that you can't just, someone says, okay, yeah, you can take my picture. You don't just snap it. That's just the beginning of the process, right? There's some risk involved of it, if you're going to engage somebody. Can you tell us a little bit about the complexity of, of trying to get somebody of trying to take someone's tintype?
Yeah, it can be really, really, really hard. So one, I always pray that whoever is around will see me with my equipment and come up to me. That's what I always hope for. Sometimes that happens. And in fact, I have learned from them. Otherwise, I just learned that I have to go up to people and say hi. In the beginning, it was really hard because I didn't have anything to show for it. I don't think at that time I had a smartphone, so I didn't have any pictures on my phone. I didn't have any print. I wasn't going to carry around my tintypes. I just was like, hey, I do this thing. Can I make your picture? But also, like, there was the balance, because at a skate park, people are there to skate. I mean, they definitely hang out, but they're going to hang out with other skaters. They're not going to hang out with me. So I just learned to approach people and introduce myself, be nice. I would sit and watch for a long time and just smile and try to make eye contact. I mean, anything. Sometimes people would be like, "What are you doing here?" Or, "Is that paint on your jeans?" Like, like, obviously somebody like, I want to talk to them. They want to talk to me. They're shy. I'm shy. Like, how is this going to work? But ultimately, like, I try to make myself semi-visible, and I just watch for a while, and I look to see if somebody is taking a break, or if they're noticing me. If I notice them noticing me, I'll just kind of keep an eye. And eventually, like, if they're just hanging out, not skating, I'll approach them and just say, "Hi, I'm doing this thing." And before my skater book came out, I had made a book dummy, so I could say, "Hey, I do this thing. Here's some pictures," and or on my phone, you know. And
Right.
then they always thought it was really cool. And the fact that I had this big view camera, the fact that I had all this chemistry and stuff, the fact that they could watch plates be developed in the moment, was all a plus. All to say that it's still hard. I mean, it's much easier now with my girl work, and I talk about this in the talk. I go to events, and it's just a different scene, rather than me just going to random skate parks here and there and hoping for the best.
Mhm. When you were going to random skate parks, would you make the plate first and then go find a subject, or you would have to find the subject first and then say, all right, I'll go put the plate and then I'll get you in 10 minutes?
Oh, I see. No, it really depended on how many people were there. And I mean, sometimes I would, because it'd be like, oh my God, if they say yes, I need to be ready right now, and I've got to set this up and shoot it right
Mhm.
now. And sometimes I do that, and then they leave, and I would make a landscape.
Nice. Okay. Well, thank you, Jenny, for chatting with me. I really appreciate it. Um, we would love to see whatever you want to present.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. And are you seeing my fireworks there right now?
Yes.
Okay. Are you seeing Skater Girls?
Yes, indeed.
And you're not seeing all my notes?
Just no,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah, just Scare Girls.
All right. So formally beginning here. Thank you for having me, Vince and Anita and EBPCO. Being part of this community over the last few years has been extremely rewarding and pleasurable, and a saving grace over the last 6 months. And I am very, very happy to be here now. Tonight, I'm going to present and talk with you about my body of work that I unofficially began in 2010, and then more formally in 2017, my Skater Girls. In light of recent events, an event in particular of immense sadness, I would like to begin by saying this. I hope I could do it without crying. Okay. It is because of the beliefs and formidable accomplishments of Ruth Bader Ginsburg that advancements of women in skateboarding and all sports have been made. Women athletes have demanded equal treatment and prize, have been awarded so at times. The fight, however, continues for true equality in all facets of the industry, and of course beyond. And I have to say too, the women who I have met over the last few years making this work inspire me to no end. They are incredibly warm, tenacious, and articulate. They are just incredible trailblazers, and they amaze me every single day that I was out there photographing. Just the incredible support and the incredible drive that they have. I just can't believe it. And, you know, a lot of these women are like in their early and mid 20s. I was not that at that time in my life. And they blow me away. So just want to start with that. As many of you know, I began making tintypes, of course you know now because I talked about it just a few minutes ago, of skaters in 2010. I hauled my 4x5 view camera, my brand new freshly painted portable darkroom with leftover house paint. So yes, my first portable darkroom matches my house, and chemistry to the Berkeley skate park to see what might happen. I disguised my insecurities and by focusing on the process and the setting up of my equipment, and I dove in. I made about 8 plates that day in January of 2010, and I knew in that moment I was onto something. And this is just an example of some of those plates that I made that day. There's Justin, Mike, and Miles. I continued for many years after this, setting up at random skate parks, making portraits, and I never saw that many women or girls. I was super excited when I did. I had this feeling of camaraderie with them. I'm a girl, they're a girl. I always hoped that they kind of had similar feelings, especially because I was pretty sure a woman with a bunch of giant photographic equipment did not hang out at skate parks very often, but this really was not often the case. My equipment, as I also mentioned in the little question answer period early on, was a major factor in helping me get noticed. This could then lead to someone coming up to me, essentially making the first move. And I want to add too, I'm just going to be showing imagery. It doesn't necessarily have to do with what I'm speaking about in that moment, although sometimes it does. So, and it is not chronological in any way. Making the first move had always been and still can be one of the most challenging factors in making this work. It has become ever so much easier, and sometimes I think I've overcome it. I've overcome this hurdle completely until it happens again, as it still lurks. One day in January 2017, 7 years after making my first skater tintypes, I came upon a posse of girl skaters at the Emeryville skate park. This is actually the girls. They told me about an organization, Skate Like a Girl, that was having an event in Santa Rosa. I remember thinking, there is an organization that's focusing on only the girl skaters. Where are the girl skaters? Like, I haven't seen them. I was like, what? This day was a turning point for a couple major reasons. One, I quashed this extraordinary feeling of unassertiveness and dejection I was feeling that day. And two, I became extraordinarily motivated to focus my energies on only the girl skaters once the upcoming deadlines for my skater book were fulfilled. I can't really overstate the significance of that day for me. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. It was a huge day. So I went to this event weeks later that Skate Like a Girl held. It was in Santa Rosa. I set up my equipment as usual. I introduced myself to the Skate Like a Girl folks, and I told them what I was there for. I signed in and I paid an entry fee, even though I was only gonna hang out outside. They were super stoked. They just loved it. They excitedly accepted me. I made portraits of several of them. In fact, Izzy on the t-shirt, the EBPCO t-shirt, was from that day. I just hung out there and asked skaters if I could photograph them. Although it was hard because the event was indoors and I was outside and people were going in, and it's not like they were all out there and I could pick and choose whoever I wanted. Something I noticed right away was that this group was tight. They loved each other, they supported each other, they were really celebrating. And the pros were there too, hanging out with everyone. This person right here is Vanessa Torres. She's pro skater, has been for many, many years. And she is actually now a judge at a lot of events. Before I went to this event, I realized that I didn't know anything about girl skaters. So I started doing much more specific searches online to find out a little bit more, because I had been at that time researching a lot about skaters in general for the book. My first skater book was not guy skaters, it was skaters, anyone I could find. And there are actually girls in that book, but it was mainly guys. And most of the research I did and looking for stuff online, it was all guys. It was all guy skaters. So I really tried to be more proactive, because I knew that, it just felt wrong to go to this girl event without knowing anything about the girl skaters who were known. So when I got there, I recognized some of the pros. Like I mentioned, Vanessa Torres was there and Mariah Duran was there. And I kind of recognized other people, but it was because it was kind of a new thing for me. I couldn't keep all the names straight. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of skaters out there. Everybody has a different opinion about who's good. There are definitely like the legends and stuff like that, but I crammed for the test. So this isn't Mariah Duran. I just love this portrait, so I'm going to sit on here for a minute. But I've come really close to photographing Mariah several times. It can be tougher than you think to photograph people even at events, because there's a lot going on, and kind of sometimes the more up and coming and more well-known skaters, they're kind of being pulled from a lot of different angles. But in any event, I have kind of a funny story about Mariah, which might not be funny to you, but in thinking about what I was going to talk about tonight, I kind of remembered this story. But I was at a skate park, and this woman, like this guy and this girl, were skating near me, and I'm like, God, she looks so familiar. She had this big headband on. It's like, God, I think that's someone who I've been watching like X game competitions, and she was in them, but I can't remember who it is. But I really want to get her portrait. And I said, I don't know, I asked her some question. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember later, kind of mainly because she gave me a funny look. I could have just said, "Hi, I'm Jenny. I am such a fan of yours. Can I make your portrait?" And not even have said her name, but I didn't do that because honestly, like I had just been going to skate parks. I hadn't gone to events, so I wasn't used to needing to know who anyone was when I was photographing. I would just go and, it was just people skating at a skate park. So I think she said, "Yeah, sure, like later." Okay, fine. But anyway, what I didn't realize, and what I kind of learned later, was that the event that I was at was a video release event for a filmmaker, Monique O'Toole, who is also a skater but was doing more films. It was like the release party for a film she made called Quit Your Day Job. It was the first all-girls skateboarding film to be made in a really long time, like maybe 10 years or whatever. And Mariah Duran was one of the girl skaters in the film. So like, here's this person who I'm asking if I can make a portrait of her, and I don't know who she is, and I'm there because she's in the film that's being celebrated that day. So, um, you know, I was a little clueless that day, and that's okay. I can be clueless. I'm okay with being clueless. I just go home. I try to remember whatever it was I need to be less clueless about, and see if I can figure out how to be less clueless the next time. Um, uh, so I also want to say, like, if Vince, if like you have any questions, or if anyone has any questions in the moment of any of these images, um, I'm happy to answer or talk about them.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I know I've got a lot of imagery here. So
Yeah. Yeah, folks, if you have a specific question about, oh, great, we've already have some. So Steve Abbott says, are these mostly 4x5?
Good question. That's in a couple panels from now. But yes, all of my except for those, except for the work I did at Emeryville earlier in the slideshow, and the portraits I made at the Santa Rosa skate park event, those I was still shooting 4x5. But all of the work that is, like I would say 98% of this work is 8x10. So
Okay.
I got an 8x10 camera after the skaters. Like I knew that once I was gonna move over to girl skaters, I was like, I'm gonna do this in 8x10 because I had bought this camera. I really wanted to use it. It seemed like it just seemed like the right thing to do, but it also required that I build a new darkroom to accommodate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't actually really dive into photographing girl skaters till 2018 because, gosh, there's just a lot of minor details about this. But part of it is that I didn't realize how much time, once the skater book came out, how much time that was going to require of me. And so I really wasn't shooting it much at all after, like, I don't know, into May, June, July of that year. But also I was trying to figure out when the events were that I needed to go to photograph girls. And I'll kind of talk more about that later, but that didn't really start till 2018. And I needed to make sure to have that darkroom ready to go.
Wow. Anita asks, are all these images in the book?
Thank you for asking that. No, they're not.
So
a lot of them are.
the few that you're only going to see them here. This is the only place.
Yeah. I had to edit out a lot. I had a lot of portraits, a lot of tintypes, and I had to cut out a lot, and it hurt.
I know how much you identify with each image.
And they're not even all in this. I kept having to delete them from the slideshow. In fact, I feel bad because I know there's a lot of, there's like an onslaught here, but I was like, God damn it, I couldn't get them in the book. I want to put more in here, blah, blah, blah.
Another question is from Shannon. Do you just say pose as you like, or do you pose them? You know, how does that work?
I'll actually get to that in a little while.
Okay,
so
great.
I'll pass on that.
Okay, well, you've had your break, so go ahead.
Okay. Oops. Hold. Okay. Sorry, guys. All right. So I digressed a little with that story about Mariah Durham and me being totally clueless. So I'm going to go back to the event in Santa Rosa. I just want to say, like, there are also guys there. They were kind of loitering outside and skating and playing that supporting role that girls have been playing for decades of their boyfriend skaters. But they were loving it. Everybody was loving everything. But it was really beautiful to see. In a lot of these events, you know, there's a lot of guys hanging around supporting their daughters, their girlfriends, their friends, and they're not allowed to participate. And not to be, I mean, it just is nice to have like this arena that is focusing on like this marginalized group that's always been there. Anyway. So I recognize what I had been seeing for many years going to skate parks, the discipline and the support and the democratic world of skateboarding that I had observed at skate parks was just intensified in this place. And it was a place that was almost entirely girls. So like, sorry, there's a little bit of overlap of my just babbling and then my talk, but I could feel like this momentum growing. I was just getting very, very excited to kind of dive right in to all of this. So what is cooler than a skater? A girl skater. That's my answer to that. Because skaters are kind of cool. Some people think they're cool.
I'm sorry, Jenny, could you go back one?
Yeah.
I mean, that this was kind of the answer to your question of what's cooler than a skater, a girl skater. But it just strikes me there's so many elements here, you know, photographic elements that are working together, you know, the background, and then the tintype-y nature, the way that Tintype is accentuating her facial features and her freckles and things like that. And
sure.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
the medium and the subject work so well together.
Yeah, you know, it's really, I don't know, this is just one of those portraits. I mean, of many, I should say, like, and it is coming from my subjects, from these folks, like, they are so content where they are. They're really proud. I've got this giant camera focused on them. Like, I love all these folks. And and they're just super into it. And I just, you know, they're used to being photographed by each other, video or whatever, doing tricks and all this stuff. So they're really used to being watched and documented, but they are never documented in this way. But, you know, they're all like, even the most kind of timid looking folks are like, they're so solid. They're really psyched to participate. And they do participate. It is a total collaboration when I make these. And the freckle part that you kind of mentioned, you know, wet plate collodion, the process, the chemistry renders colors differently than what we're used to with traditional black and white film. So it accentuates certain colors on the what do you call it? What is that word? It's like you have a blue filter. So colors that are on the opposite spectrum of blue pop. So freckles are kind of a reddish hue, and so they're going to pop. Things that are blue are going to be very, very light. And I'll have some examples of that kind of thing coming up. This is Bridget. She was running a yoga tent at a skate event. And this is where I'm going to tell you a little bit more about wet plate collodion for any of you who don't know about the process. I won't go in too much detail, but I will say that the plate is coated with collodion, which is like a tacky glue. It's submerged. The plate is submerged in silver nitrate that makes it sensitive to white light. Essentially, I'm making my own film. While the plate is wet, I have to make the exposure. During that time before exposure, I have to set up my shot, focus on my subject. When you're using a view camera, and a lot of you know about this, some of you don't, basically a view camera is just a box with a window on one end and a lens on the other, and you have to look straight through that box to focus on your subject. When you put the film slide or plate holder in, you can no longer focus on your subject. So you have to make sure that your subjects are in focus before you make the exposure. You can't focus shoot immediately. On top of that, the ASA equivalent for wet plate is 1. So that means you need a ton of light to make an exposure. So my exposures range from, I was making 1-second exposures in Santa Rosa that day because there was just god awful sun reflecting from everywhere and it was crazy, crazy bright. But generally my exposures are 2 to 5 seconds. I try to keep them 2 to 3. That being said, my subjects have to be still in front of the camera so I can focus on them. That I'm doing while the plate is being sensitized in my darkroom. And then, I'm going to back up a little bit, because one way to shorten your exposure time is to make your aperture really big so that it's letting in as much light as possible. What that also does is it makes a very shallow depth of field. So your plane of focus is very, very shallow. So if you focus, maybe some of you have seen a portrait made with a view camera, the eyeballs are in focus and the eyelashes are not. That is a shallow depth of field. So it's not that shallow with these guys, but I do try to make my exposure as short as possible. So when you do that, if somebody's posing for you and they move ever so slightly closer or further from the lens, they could be out of focus. So it's really important that my subjects are still and that I speed up the process as much as possible. So with Bridget here, she was like, why don't I do this pose? What is this pose? Is this the tree pose? Anyone does yoga out there? Anyway, I can't do this pose even if I've got one hand on the wall. So I've set it up, I focused on her, I load the plate, I come back out, I'm like, okay, Bridget, let's do one last final focus. Are you feeling good? Breathe. I always tell my subjects to breathe and blink. And she gets in her pose and I made a tintype of her. Anyway.
It's perfect. You got it.
Couldn't believe it.
Yes, there's some confirmation that it's tree pose.
Tree pose, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so not long after the event in Santa Rosa, I began using my 8x10 view camera. Really, I started using it in the beginning of 2018. And I built a new portable darkroom that could accommodate larger plates and more chemistry and bigger trays and jugs of water and all that good stuff. And I began attending more girl-centric skateboarding events based on my experience in photographing skaters over the years and knowing how challenging it can be just to get one portrait, regardless if it's a guy or a girl. I knew I needed to have a very fine-tuned plan of attack to find girls en masse. So I started attending all these different events. A little side note, this here is Lisa Whitaker. She is a mover and a shaker, trailblazer woman. She's a filmmaker. She also created the first all-women's skate team called Meow, and which is still going. And she's just a really lovely, awesome person. I had been wanting to photograph her for a long time. And I photographed her here in Los Angeles at a girl skate event. So the events the girl-centric events were kind of just that. I could set up my darkroom, I could set up my equipment, and I could just go. I quickly realized that I needed 1, a sign-up sheet, and 2, an assistant. I didn't always have an assistant, but at certain events that I knew had the potential for being, one, very hot, and two, very busy, and three, over more than one day, I definitely needed an assistant. This is Danny and Vada. I photographed them in Encinitas at an event called Exposure in 2018. And this was an event that took place over a weekend. Actually, funny story kind of about this. When I approached them and asked if I could set up my setup there, I was like, I could just set it up in the parking lot. I don't want to be in the way. I don't want to get in the way of anyone. I'm just doing this. I'm working on a series. And they were like, no, you can't be in the parking lot. And I was like, oh, shit. And they're like, we're going to put you in the vendor, like in the vendor area or whatever. They put me literally right next to the vert ramp. Like I was in the middle of everything. I was like, uh-oh, I better get an assistant right now. So anyway, this is Danny and Vada. Danny is, I think Danny's the mom. I'm actually spacing on it at the moment. This was a 2-day event. I had been photographing all day on Saturday, and I was at the Airbnb that night, drinking some beer, just recuperating. It was hot. It's a hell of a lot of work working at these events. It's just nonstop. And I get a text from someone that says, oh, I wanted to get a tintype tomorrow of me and my daughter. She's 3. And I wrote back and I was like, I was trying to be very diplomatic. I said, I'd love to make your portrait. For any of you familiar with wet plate, I really don't like to photograph anyone under like maybe 6. I will, but it's really hard to get kids to be very still. And so I just explained it to her, and she said, well, my daughter is learning how to skateboard. And I thought, oh, I happen to know that if there's a 3-year-old learning how to skateboard, they know how to focus, they know how to balance. Like there's something about like, they're already being instructed to pay attention to their bodies in a way. And so I was like,
So
okay, well, I just said she needs to be able to be still for 30 seconds. I said, if she can do that, like I just had to put up some kind of parameters because, making tintypes is very expensive. Going to these events is a lot of work. And I learned that I had to really kind of, I knew I only had so much energy. I really needed to make sure that, I don't mean to sound like a horrible person, but I didn't want to waste my time. I had to make sure that if I was going to photograph someone, it was going to work. Sometimes it doesn't work. And that's why I needed to make sure, because even in the best situations, it doesn't always work. So in any event, she said, okay. And the next day I was working away, and she came up, and my assistant was like, oh, this person signed up. She said she talked to you. Okay, fine. Okay. So I set up this shot with Danny and Vada, and I knew, like, oops, I don't want to have my mouse in there. I knew I didn't want to have this 3-year-old standing. I needed to dress for success here. So I just planned to have Vada sitting, like both of them sitting, and have Vada kind of like rest her head against her mom. And then I just told Danny, I said, look, whatever your daughter does, don't move, look at me. Don't pay attention to your daughter, only pay attention to me. If she moves, she moves. I want you to not move. Okay. So we did this, and I almost just lost my head. And then Danny told me later She said, I made Vada, I tested her 3 times last night. I had a stopwatch and I made her stay still for 30 seconds. So she had practiced. Oh my God, like I couldn't believe it. So anyway, that's the story behind this one. It's a long story. I apologize for that.
You
And
probably
also,
improved that little girl's life. Now she's going to be able to like sit down and study for the SAT, no problem. She's going to have all these, great concentration skills.
and these two ladies have blue eyes, by the way. So that's kind of why they look a little ghostly and crazy.
But Jenny,
And
what you're saying, of course, anyone who's ever pointed a camera at a child knows that even a 60th of a second sometimes is too slow. And the
yeah,
challenge of a 30-second exposure, that's pretty amazing. Even with an adult,
yeah.
that's really amazing.
Oh, I know. I mean, there are some people I've tried to photograph many times, adults, and it's just not in the book. It's just not supposed to happen. I've got another story. I'm going to translate this image for you a little bit. This is Hannah. I photographed her in LA. I was photographing someone else, and I saw Hannah out of the corner of my eye. She was standing on her board just like this. And I noticed immediately that her board said steamer. That means Alyssa Steamer. Alyssa Steamer is like total legend skater, girl skater, came up in the 90s, was the first girl skater on a team. It was Toy Machine, some of you might know, Ed Templeton's team. Anyway, she's just like a flipping cool ass person, hugely inspiring to many girls and women who skateboard now. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of hers, and I saw Hannah out of the corner of my eye with this skateboard, and this is 2018. That skateboard had just come out, and what that skateboard is there is a skateboard team called Baker. So there are a lot of like these teams. It's not like the Giants and the Mets and all that. Skateboard teams, like, I don't know, it's I'm not the best at explaining this, but there are these teams, their companies, they have their skateboards and their shirts and all this stuff. They get sponsored, and they just sell equipment to people who want to be skaters, and they're usually really flipping good skaters. So anyway, Baker is a pretty respected skate team, and the guy who runs it is a real sweetheart. His daughter is a skater, and so Alyssa, they brought Alyssa on the team in 2018. Alyssa was big in the 90s, but has been popular since. Baker brought her on their team in 2018, first pro girl skater on their team. A little bit of an eye roll, like, why is the first girl on the team now in 2018 when it's been so long, even though you guys are really cool? Anyway, it's kind of like, it's really awesome. Anyway, when somebody goes on a skateboard team, Baker always puts out a board with their signature block letters and stuff and the last name of that person. And they're super popular. And anyway, so here's Hannah with her steamer board. And I ran up to her after I'd made the plate that I was making. When I saw her out of the corner of my eye, I ran up to her and I asked her if I could make her portrait, and please, would you just stand on your board again? And that's what's happening here. Yeah, Alyssa Steamer. I'm going to just kind of silently scroll through some other plates here.
Don't forget, everybody, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and I will relay them to Jenny.
It's funny, I'm realizing now, like, why did I put these two together? On the left is Laura. She's a skater from like the 70s, 80s. In fact, she's holding a photograph of herself from that time. Super cool woman. And then Omala on the right, who is literally just learning how to skateboard. She just got her skateboard and her pads and everything from her dad for her birthday. And I don't know, there was something, I've never actually paired these two up before, but I did that. And it's kind of curious to me that you got somebody who's like brand new and somebody who's just super OG. So, you know, these are all environmental portraits. Since skaters use skate parks, they use parking lots, they use sidewalks, fire hydrants, and other urban objects when they're skating. I always welcome any of these objects into the portraits when I'm making the work. I just don't care if they're in there. Before, when like pre-wet plate, I never wanted any contemporary objects in my work. I really like to have a timeless, no crap, no logos, no baseball caps rule for myself. With the skater work, you know, anything goes, literally anything goes. I ask them if they have any thoughts or ideas about how they want to situate or pose themselves. And if I think it is possible, taking into consideration light or like the long exposure times combined with a pose that may not actually be feasible to hold still, we will do it. Like, I really want to do whatever they want to do if we can do it. The only things I try to keep out of my portraits are my darkroom and my equipment. There have been times when people have assisted, I mean, really just like people hanging out, maybe a friend of the person I'm photographing or a parent or any random person. Because sometimes often I am shooting by myself and I need help. Sometimes they get excited, they get in a little close with the reflector, everything's perfect, I process the plate and there's a fucking reflector in there. And so yeah, nothing of me in these pictures, except perhaps the unspoken me.
Jenny, Steve asks about, it's a good example. Some photographs have some vignetting, and this one,
Yeah.
like the previous two had vignetting. This one does not.
Yeah, most often that is because of the climate. There have been times when I have been photographing in, actually, Steve, you probably know a lot about this, really hot weather. And if the plate will start drying out. And if it is dry, it doesn't expose anything.
Wow.
So there were a bunch of tintypes I made in LA. It was like 90 plus degrees out and my plates were just drying. And at first I was super upset about it, but then I realized that it was actually like vignetting all my subjects in a way that was fine. This is Leo Baker. They are a pro skater, and Leo is on the US Olympic skateboard team. They are an inspiration and hero to many, many young girls. When they started, she was Lacey Baker. She had long hair. She was really young. She has just come up through the ranks and also is a trailblazer. And I was super happy to photograph Leo when I did. It's funny, like, just in the moment while I'm talking about this, I'm realizing like there was another pro skater at this event, Nora Vasconcelos, who I think I left out of the slideshow, but she's in the book. And I totally, I just went up to her. I did that thing. I was like, Jenny, like, if you don't fucking do this, you are so lame and you're not allowed to do this anymore. And so I just went up to Nora and I said, hi, I'm Jenny. I'm such a fan. And she's like, hi, I'm Nora Vasconcelos. You know, and this is like the night before, like just people were doing karaoke. It was a party thing. And I told her what I was doing, and I asked her if I could make her portrait. And the next morning I went up to her and she's like, "Hey, Jenny," and she gave me a hug. She's like, "Let's do this now before I have to start." She was also a judge. So I made her portrait first thing that day. And it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then what happens is other pros who are perhaps, I'm like, a lot of people are very shy or whatever. Anyway, all of a sudden I had this like lineup of pro skaters like hanging around me, like on their Instagram, sitting on the ground and stuff. Anyway, it was like pretty exciting. I was asking my friend Shannon, who was assisting me that day, I'm like, I gave her my phone. I'm like, "Can you take a picture of me with my camera?" And all those people waiting like, around me because I was kind of starstruck. Anyway, sorry, I digress again. But anyway, I made Leo's portrait, and this was one of those moments where I had everything set up. I was really excited. Leo's kind of shy. I was a little nervous. And like right before we were about to make the portrait, these two girls come up to give Leo these sweatshirts that they had sewn, some, like maybe it was a sewn face of Leo, I don't even know. They were crying. Leo was hugging them. It was like the most heartwarming, sweet, lovely outpouring of love and togetherness and support. And I was like, oh my God, my plate is going to fucking dry out. What am I going to do? But I was like, okay, I think I'm going to go back in my darkroom. I took it out, and then finally, because people don't, even if I explain the process, it's really hard to translate in real time. Mm-hmm. So that's Leo. So anyway, making these portraits is very collaborative. I can't do it without them. The most important thing for me, whether or not I am posing them or they're posing themselves, is that they're comfortable, both physically and mentally. If you can be that, it's much easier to be still. And so that's my only goal, is that they're content and they're happy and they're comfortable.
Jenny, Anita from Oakland asks, do you often or ever have subjects who recognize the historical nature of the photographic process? And do you notice if that affects the way they pose versus people who don't have a familiarity with tintype?
That's a great question. I would have to say, no, people really aren't familiar with it. More recently, perhaps in the last year, they have either seen my work because word gets around, or wet plate collodion, making tintypes is just not the same thing as it was when I began. A lot more people are doing it, but really truly most people haven't seen it. They don't get it. Mm-hmm. And on occasion I will make a second plate if it is someone who, if it didn't work out, if they have the time, if I have the time, if I have this like gut feeling that I really want this plate, I'm going to just ask for it again. Very often it's just like one shot deal. That's it. Mm-hmm. And if I photograph somebody a second time, I always like the first one better, even if it's messed up. And sometimes I just don't use any of them because I can't, because I don't know, there's something, it's like looking in the mirror. If you know what you look like, you're going to start futzing, but if you're just like I'm talking people through this process, and it is, it's a relationship that my subjects and I have in that moment. And it just seems like a more honest and real portrait, which is funny for me to say because most of the people I don't know. So how do I know if it's honest and true? But you can kind of tell. You can just kind of tell. I mean, on occasion, the second one works, but mostly forget it, at least for me. And it's important to me, too, that they don't look like they're posed. So like if someone is asking me to give them ideas, I'll say like, how do you hold your skateboard? Or can you stand like this and do that? Does that feel weird to you? Like, have you ever done this before? Or does this feel weird? Like I really, really talk to them to make sure that they're not doing anything that they wouldn't do normally on their own. Uh,
Jenny, I have kind of a crackpot idea, which is uh, it seems to me that skateboarding in itself, while it's a performance, the performers are not showing off how they look, right? They're showing off what they're doing, and
yeah,
and so these might be folks that are, they don't spend all their time thinking about what they look like visually. They're concentrated on how they skate.
I think they actually do care about how they look, but not in the same way that perhaps more mainstream people do.
Mm.
There's definitely a style that skaters have. There are there's clothing. You can support your favorite skater, your favorite skate team. There's definitely fashion, and people want to look a certain way. They dye their hair, they do all that stuff. People are, but what is different is that you get to look however you want to look, not how somebody else tells you to look.
Right.
Um, what is pretty, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? You know, um, and so yeah, there's a lot of more interest in creativity and independence and all that, rather than I don't know. Does this make my butt look fat?
Mhm.
So here are some pictures I thought I'd share with you, a little behind the scenes. This is me in Seattle with Marsha and Diana at a Skate Like a Girl event. So right here is where I'm kind of explaining, that how I want them to be, themselves and relaxed, how they could breathe, how they could blink, how they have to be still, all this stuff. Then this here is me behind the camera photographing them. You can see we're at a skate park. There's just tons and tons of people there. This is, oh my gosh, am I drawing on here? What just happened? Oh, shit. How did I get that red pen? Anyway, ignore that red pen. That's funny. And then this here is me after I'm showing them the plate. This is a very, very common thing. Almost always I hold up the plate for whoever I photographed, and they photograph it.
Mhm.
And I had actually done a talk at PCNW like a day or two before this event, and someone who came to that talk came and made these photographs. I was so grateful, because I really am kind of a one woman operation, and I mean, over the years I've gotten some behind the scenes shots, but not always. And then, oh no, how do I get rid? Oh shoot.
Good
Maybe if you
subtitles.
stop sharing and start again, that might restart. I don't know.
Oh shoot. How did I even do that? Okay.
If if you hover over the photo, you'll see a little pen icon in the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
You have to hover your mouse and then see right there. And
Yeah.
if you click the back key, I believe you can erase it.
Oops. Oh.
There's one icon that will erase it.
Okay, hold on.
There was an option for hidden.
Click hidden.
Oh, no, my mouse.
It's the icon from the top.
Wait. Oh my God, I'm sorry, you guys.
It's the second from the top.
I know, but it hid my,
Oh,
it hid my mouse. Oh my God. How do I stop share? Oh, there's my mouse. I'm going to stop share. Hi, everybody. And I'm going to share again. Thanks for your patience. Oh my God. Okay. Fingers crossed.
Yay, we get to see them all again.
All right, Vince, from the top. Yay!
you might not want to use your mouse so that you don't drag on
Thank
it.
you. Who's
Yeah.
talking to me? Thank you. Oh, Zan, thank you. Okay, so moving on. This is the tintype of those two gals. And, you know, I'm going to back up here. You can see how many people there are behind them, and just folks everywhere. And then in the tintype, there's no one behind them. So, you know, it's a long exposure. People are moving all over the place and they just don't show up. The beauty and the curse of a tintype. I've had people walk in between my subject and me while I'm exposing a plate. Doesn't matter, they don't show up. There are certain things, you know, you can't sweat the small stuff, you know. This is Sabrina. I don't know if Sabrina's here, but I know Ernie's here. Ernie, here's your niece. I made this portrait of Sabrina at Potrero Skate Park in San Francisco on March 1st, 2020. My last shoot this year, my last shoot before the pandemic. I just can't say enough good things about her. She's amazing. And she brought a gaggle of her pals, and we had a good old time that day. So no doubt, you know that skateboarding has been a pretty much male-dominated landscape. In the 60s, it was kind of introduced in the mainstream. It was kind of like a fun thing to do, like the Frisbee. It was kind of directed and marketed to younger folks and stuff like that. And it wasn't really until like the 80s that it became much more kind of male-centric, kind of hyper-masculine kind of a thing, taking risks and being that rebellious skateboarder self. But as you can see, you know, as you know, here's a family. There's 3 sisters and a mom. This is Carly, Samantha, Tabitha, and Susie. Susie's the mom sitting down in front with her beautiful blue eyes and dreads. She was driving her girls around all the time to skateboard lessons and competitions. And she had just started skating herself a couple years before this. So they were just a good old skateboarding family. You can kind of see how, I mean, skaters are fun-loving, goofy people. And I don't know, Tabitha, I think it's Tabitha who's wearing the mask. You know, you start setting up a picture and then somebody does something and you're like, oh yeah, we're going to go with this. Unplanned, but just in time to make sure it's focused. So throughout all of like the years of skateboarding, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, girls were always in the scene, but they didn't really have a voice. They were marginalized just like many other marginalized groups were in the skateboarding world. Skateboarding was really primarily like this, mainly like the voice of skateboarding, I should say, was mainly kind of like this white male cisgendered kind of voice. They were kind of the gatekeepers of the whole like culture of skateboarding, and so like girl skaters kind of were viewed more through like sexuality rather than skill. And over time, like you know, not even over time, like the skaters who were girls didn't appreciate this. They were skaters just like the guys were skaters. They were interested in it for the same reasons the guys were interested in it, but the people who really kind of had the voice were not the women, they were the men. And so this was one of the main kind of impetuses behind the women, girls, women, whatever word you want to use, to start kind of establishing their own ways to have a voice, starting organizations, becoming filmmakers, and creating their own safe spaces. Homage to the photographers here. There really have not been a lot of girl photographers over the years. There definitely have been some, but you know, a lot of this stuff, it's all girls all the time. It's fucking awesome, which is the name of a skate company. Fucking awesome. And I kind of alluded to this just a few minutes ago, but a skater is a skater is a skater, girl skater, guy skater, whatever. They're after the same thing. Skateboarding can provide an outlet to a kid who might not fit in, or to someone who like isn't into team sports. They don't like wearing uniforms. Their family can't afford uniforms, or maybe they're bored. They're not being challenged enough. Like there's so many different reasons why people and kids get into skateboarding. It is, you know, you can do it on the way to school, on the way home from school, to and from work. It's fun, it's challenging, it's thrilling. You know, how else do we learn? By trying, failing, trying again, failing again, trying again, failing again, and then succeeding. And this is totally all about skateboarding. If you were to go onto any skater, not any, but a lot of skate Instagram pages or whatever, they show like 10 clips, video clips. 9 of them are them trying to do a trick, falling down, screwing up, not doing it. And then number 10 is them doing it. If you cannot fail, you cannot succeed. And they know this about skateboarding, and you know, it's a powerful message. And skateboarding, like, it also encourages creativity, because skaters are, it's all about the tricks and what you can do. So you always want to like create something new that looks really cool and then be able to do it. It creates independence, because you can skate alone, and you have to skate alone because you've got to practice this stuff before you can do it. And then like the friendship, the bonds that are created with all these folks. And it also really builds courage, because it's a painful thing. A lot of, well, I'll skip that. So it's really a democratic sport or activity, because, you know, all you need to be a skater or to skateboard is a skateboard and a sidewalk. And if you don't have a sidewalk, maybe there's a parking lot somewhere nearby. Like, you don't need to have a car. You don't need to go to the mountains. You don't need special equipment that costs anything more than $20 or $40. You don't need anything but that. It's really a beautiful thing. In August, a piece on my Skater Girl book ran on the BBC website, which was simply head spinning for me. It was, I'll just leave it at that. I received some messages and some emails from people all over the world after that piece ran. And I would like to read to you what one person, a mother, wrote to me. And this is where I might need Kleenex.
We might all need Kleenex, Jenny.
Okay. Hi, I just came about an article on you and your incredible photos of female skaters. My daughter has learning difficulties and finds making friends hard, because most kids her age are interested in boys, makeup, going out. Marla is just interested in adventures, climbing high, sea swimming, and most importantly, skateboarding. Most kids don't get her at all, and so she lives life at school on the outside, looking in, where it's safe and her beautiful brain doesn't have to try desperately hard to keep up with other kids are saying. Skating has been so great for her. She's not afraid of anything or falling and bounces straight back. I'm not sure why I'm telling you this, but here's a pic you might like. EXO. I don't have her picture here, but I burst into tears when I read that. Yeah.
It's really something.
So if any of you out there think skaters or skateboarding is bad, it's not. I mean, you get bad people everywhere. Look at our president. Okay, moving on. This is, so my friend Kyoko, I met her, I'm moving from a really touching, emotional place to a very different place. My friend Kyoko, who I met in Seattle a couple of years ago, is a skater, but she's also a chaperone for Japanese skaters who come from Japan to compete at many of these events. This is a gaggle of girls who flew in from Japan for about 2 weeks to go to 2 different skateboarding events in Southern California. And Kyoko was their chaperone. I had seen them at an event the week before, but they were competing. They were very busy. It was flipping 95 degrees out. I wouldn't have been able to do this at all. Anyway, we were at another event, and Kyoko gathered them together so that I could photograph them. This is Kaya, Sora, Yumeka, Hina, and Nanami. I actually can't remember who's who. I'm very sorry about that, but you can see in the front on the right, she had competed the previous week and broke her arm. So Kyoko is not only fixing breakfast, lunch, and dinner, making sure all these girls are at every place all the time, but also spending hours and hours and hours at the ER, making sure that I think it is Yumeka, I can't remember, gets her cast and is all okay. But in any event, Kyoko knew that I really wanted to photograph them. And so she got them all together. And this is actually the 3rd tintype I made of these ladies. It was extremely challenging. They did not speak any English. They were not familiar at all to answer, was it Anita's question with tintypes? The first tintype, they were doing the skater pose, smiling, doing their thing. And they were like, the shallow depth of field was not working. And I tried to do it. I shouldn't have. It was awful. So the next time I said, okay, you guys, you need to be very close to each other. Don't smile. And they're like, what? Don't smile? Like they're like, what are you asking me to do? I'm like, get really close to each other. I'm like, Kyoko, can you please try to explain to them? It's very, very shallow depth of field. I had the girls kneeling in front, like literally sitting on the feet of the other ones, and the ladies in back were like leaning forward. Like it was so hard. And I made the 2nd plate. I was like, yes, I got it. I processed it. Operator error. During this whole process, I had my aperture open, or my shutter open, I should say. And when I made the exposure, I closed my shutter and then opened it again. So I royally screwed up. This is plate number 2, 5 people in one. This is like totally nuts. But I'm like, Kyoko, please, I'm so sorry. I was like, look how cool this is. I messed up. Can we do it again? Oh my God, it was awful. Anyway, I made a 3rd plate.
Jenny,
I think
excuse me, just like we're a little bit over time, and
No.
which is fine. We're not going to get kicked out or anything, but just wanted
Okay.
to let folks know. I would, I'm love to hear what you're saying, and I'm happy to keep going. But it just
Yeah, I'm
want
loving
to let
this too.
folks know where we are.
Okay. Yes, if anyone needs to go, I understand, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry. for
And
that.
don't forget, if anyone has questions for Jenny Sampson, put them in the chat, and I will relay them. But we're just going to keep bombing away. This is absolutely fantastic, Jenny.
And I can speed up a little bit too. Like that. Here's Kyoko.
Oh, nice. Of course, we love the stories behind them as well. Such a good storyteller.
The thing that is so awesome about Kyoko is we met. Her English is, it's pretty good, not great, but we met at a social event, and she just came up to me and we started talking, and she's just so lovely. And then a few months later, I went down to Los Angeles, and it was in March, I think. No, it was in June. And it was Go Skateboarding Day, which is a worldwide event where skaters go out and skate. And it's, I'm sure it's just like a marketing thing, but any excuse to skate is a good reason. Anyway, I was there to meet I was working on another project. I was waiting for him to arrive, and I'm eating a sandwich by my car waiting because I have to be fueled to work, and I have no time at all to eat or drink when I'm working. And Kyoko walks up, and I had only just met her like 5 months before in Seattle, and there she is in LA. I'm like, Kyoko! Anyway, she helped us unload. She hung out with me the whole time. She brought me into the event that I didn't really have a ticket to. She introduced me to the Nike skateboarding team, because she is actually like the Nike skateboarding team Japanese chaperone person. Anyway, she's just a lovely person. And then I learned later that she's a Libra just like me, and her birthday is 9 days after mine, same year, same month. So we're bonded. Anyway, that's Kyoko. I'm just going to let you look at some pictures now.
Okay, a couple questions from the Peanut Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
How old is the youngest skater you have photographed?
3.
There you go, the one we saw earlier.
Right?
Yeah.
I might have, I think 3. It's possible. Yeah, 3 is the youngest for sure.
Mm-hmm. Steve had another good question. On hot days, you mentioned this problem of the plates drying out. Do you keep the developer in a cooler, or do you have any strategies for dealing with the?
No, I use chemistry actually. So there are ways that you can add ingredients to your developer for hot climates that help immensely for that. The way I'm photographing and the places, like the locations where I am, and it would be extremely challenging for me to keep things actually cool. I do have a fan in my tent to help me stay cool.
Yeah.
But no, I don't really keep my chemistry cool in that way. And
also it's the problem is the collodion, right? That drying out, like what can you?
Excuse me. Yeah. But that's also a chemistry related thing. You make your chemistry according to the climate in which you're going to photograph.
Uh-huh.
So I have hot developer, cold develop. Well, I pretty much only use hot developer because you can use it anytime, but I've got hot developer and regular developer. You can have collodion for hot temperatures and cooler temperatures. And that has to do with the viscosity of the collodion. Collodion is similar to syrup. So in a cold climate, you need to make sure there's more ether in there so that it runs more quickly. And if it's hot, you need to make sure that there's not as much ether or alcohol in there because you don't want it to evaporate out and then stick. The thing about pouring the collodion on a plate is that you need to do it quickly and evenly. So you work with the climate and your chemistry. I know that a lot of, or not a lot, I know some tintype photographers do that. If you have like a portable darkroom trailer that has electricity, if you don't have to wheel your equipment in 5 trips from your car, all these things that make it a lot easier to be more in control, that's awesome. I'm sure you could get better results all the time. That is not what I've been doing. Yeah. It can really suck sometimes.
Jenny, I remember, I haven't seen your 8x10 dark room, but I saw your 4x5, which is basically a steamer trunk that Jenny climbs into.
I don't really climb into it.
Jan asks, how many plates have you made? So, and I would add to that, how many plates have you made for Girl Skater, and how many plates have you made in your entire lifetime?
Oh my God. I think maybe girls, maybe only around 250 or so, maybe 280, but they're definitely like, do you mean good plates? Maybe 150.
You've probably taken 300-ish exposures.
Probably. And that's actually, I think, just the girl skaters. That's not skaters overall.
And then lifetime?
And lifetime? I don't know. You can count them when I die. I have them all. Even the shitty ones.
And
No,
Katrina asks, what's the cost per plate?
That is hard to measure. I buy sheets of aluminum. I make my tintypes on aluminum. None of these are ambrotypes, which are glass. These are aluminum plates. I don't know, like the aluminum plate, I don't know, maybe around 10-ish. Yeah.
Including the aluminum and the silver and
Aluminum, silver, developer, all that, varnish, just the plate, just the chemistry, not including anything else. This is actually the last slide of the actual tintypes. I'm going to read from my statement. And then after this, I just kind of have some more behind the scenes little fun things. My skater series, not girl skater, my skater series has often been described as resembling Civil War soldier portraits. I proudly adopt that description. Ultimately, despite the contemporary subject matter and modern details, we see a unique honesty, and we are struck by the strength and determination of these skaters. There is a notable mutual respect I experienced while making this particular series, as photography has also historically been male-dominated. Although I am not a skater, I feel accepted as a member of this group. Here are my Civil War she-soldiers. They are purposeful and courageous, open, playful, and supportive. I admire their respectful and shrewd fight for a place in the world. And then here's some fun stuff.
That's the darkroom.
This is my darkroom and my camera. I have not yet set up my trays yet. This is at the Berkeley skate park where I first made tintypes in 2010 with my smaller camera teeny tiny dark that you have seen, Vince, and that if any of you have seen me at Open Studios, that's the dark room I have there. This is actually like a 4x4 foot room. This is me with Zoe and Sophie in LA with my camera. Adorable girls. This is me tucked away behind the skate park, or my setup, I should say, my camera at the El Sereno skate park in Los Angeles. Sometimes I go to a place and I always am fearful that I'm going to be asked to leave because people don't know what I'm doing. If I say chemistry, maybe it's not allowed. I was kicked out of the Napa skate park a few years ago. Fortunately, I was already finished and cleaning everything up. But the park ranger, because it was actually a state park, was like, you can't do this here. People try to change their oil here and they can't even do that. And I'm like, okay, sorry, I'll be out really soon. So anyway, when I go anywhere, I'm always afraid that I'm going to get kicked out. So that's why I kind of tuck away to places that maybe I can't be seen. I also just don't want to be in the way of anyone because skateboards can go flying anywhere, for one. And also, you know, I'm in somebody else's territory. I want to photograph them. I don't want to take up their space. I want to be respectful of their space. And then this is me. Kyoko actually took these pictures of me photographing another woman who she was chaperoning from Japan, Aiko.
I have that same little stand, that collapsing step stool.
Oh, the step stool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm short. I really, really need that. Here I am washing a plate, about to show it to the subjects with some onlookers. I always wear that headlamp too. It's got a red light on it, so that's my darkroom light. And this is my darkroom. So I talked about how I tuck away in places because sometimes I get kicked out. This is at Bond Skate Park in Los Angeles. I had set up out of the way, like the skate park had grass all around it, so I knew skaters weren't going to be skating there. I set it up. I was, no one was there. I was just like waiting for skaters to show up. And then the park manager shows up and she said I couldn't be there. But in fact, she was actually just keeping an eye on the skate park. And I wasn't allowed to be 40 feet from the skate park. So I had set everything up. I hadn't poured my chemistry yet, thank God, because no one was even there yet. And I can do that rather quickly. And so, but I had set up my tent. So I tipped it. I took everything out of it. I tipped it on its side. I put it on top of my, what do you call that thing? My wagon. And I rolled it like 100 feet away from the skate park and set everything up there. So that was a first and hopefully a last. And then here I am at exposure. One of my assistants made this picture of me. She actually only sent it to me a few months ago. It was a really great gift because, like I said, I don't have a lot of pictures of me. And doing work, and anyway, that's me there.
You're wearing the same necklace.
I am, my square. And that's it. Sorry. I'm sorry it's so short. I'm sure it was supposed to go for longer.
That's fantastic.
So anyway, so you can follow me on Instagram, Jenny Sampson Photography. I also have like a non quote unquote professional Instagram, which is Jenny Ruth 22. That one I just kind of use for iPhone pictures. Although I do also market some of my skater book stuff, but typically it's just iPhone, website, email. The book is published by Daylight Books. They published my first book. Did a great job, and it is going to be available very, very soon. I just heard that it is due in port from Turkey in the next like 5 days. So,
Do you have a sample you can hold up? Do you have a copy or like advanced copy?
the copy I have is not bound, nor does it have any cardboard
Okay.
or anything. It's floppy.
We're looking forward to seeing the real thing. So everybody, I put the link, the purchase link in the chat again. We can purchase directly from Jenny. And then Jenny said earlier that local bookstores, independent bookstores can order it. It should be in their system. And then Jenny's gonna have a in-person party in October.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be the second weekend in October. Safe,
It's okay. And
outside.
Yeah.
Hi, Katrina.
Hi, this is such a pleasure. I love it. Thank you. And I'm
thank you,
enjoying
Katrina.
this with my daughter.
I love it. Get her
So
a
special.
skateboard. Might be hot up there though.
Ugh.
Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask me directly or anything at all? Or is it bedtime?
let's see. Lots of thank yous and great presentations and people looking forward to the book. And
Very inspirational images, Jenny. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I
Appreciate it.
feel like I'm in a major like metropolitan museum, and I had the pleasure of actually speaking with the artist in addition to actually seeing the artist's artwork. So it's like a double blessing.
Thank you, Katrina. That means a lot. Thank you.
right, well, Jenny, thank you again. That really was terrific. It was a
Yeah, it really was.
presentation, and the work is fantastic, of course. But hearing you talk about the work and all the stories behind it, and all you've gone through to create this body of work is really inspiring, and it really took us to somewhere really special. So thank you, Jenny, on behalf
Thanks
of
for
everybody.
having me.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Jenny.
thank you,
Great.
everybody, for attending. It was
Bravo.
really great to get